Well, welcome again. I'm happy that you all can join. This is Becky Thompson with the Washington Student Achievement Council. I have with me Ann Boyles, Jaylee Schultz, as well as Kelly Olson here from the Student Achievement Council. So I'll get us started, and then I will pass it off to Jaylee Schultz to do some of the other presenting. So today's topic is really teacher shortage financial aid programs. I'm going to give a brief introduction to two programs, and then very quickly we're going to move on and talk very specifically about one of them and how we need your help and assistance with awarding students that have applied and will be awarded this program. So I'm going to give an overview of two programs, and then we're going to dive into one of them in terms of really talking about what WSAC's role is with that program and where we need your assistance and really walking through that. It will include a demonstration of steps you would need to take in the portal. And then throughout, I think with this group as well as at the end, we'll make sure that we have time for questions. So I hope that all of you really have received communication from Carissa Glassburn as well as Jaylee Schultz about this program, of course, about this webinar, and that you've received a copy of the program manual. And I will let you know, that manual will also be posted online in the coming days, and we'll let you know when that is, as well as when the recording of this webinar is going to be available. So you might have colleagues that may want to view the recording or take a look at the manual. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and talk for a minute about just a little bit of background on these two new grant programs that came about in last legislative session, so in session 2016. In that legislation, there was funding of two new programs that really are intended to be financial aid programs to address the teacher shortage. The first one being a teacher shortage conditional grant program, and that one is a conditional grant in that it is a program in which recipients will get dollars for their tuition or other expenses to go to college when they're pursuing a teaching credential, but they also at the same time are going to be promising to really kind of pay that back, so to speak, in service later when they become a teacher. And so that program will be coming. We will be giving you more information about that program in the coming months. We will open that application cycle to recipients in the May timeframe, but it will be funding that will be distributed really for the 17-18 academic year. The other program that really we'll spend the rest of our time talking about today is the Student Teaching Residency Grant Program. This is a strictly grant program, so these are dollars to recipients for for educational costs during a period of time in which they are student teaching. And so we have that application running currently for students to apply to our office, and those folks, we anticipate that 50 to 70 students will be awarded this statewide. We have more than 400 applicants, by the way. And Jaylee will talk a little bit about the process coming up, but we here at the Student Achievement Council will really be selecting who are recipients, but then what we need you all to do, maybe not unlike what you do sometimes maybe with a scholarship, is to certify their eligibility. So there's pieces of their award package that we need to know to ensure that we're giving them the right amount of dollars when it comes to that grant. And so that's really what we're going to talk about today, is how do we accomplish that. And by the way, there was actually a smaller group. Some of you on the line were part of a smaller work group that has convened over the last month or so a couple times to really give us some feedback on what we have outlined here. I will say that this is not probably the ideal process. There's a little bit of manual clicking that you all will have to do that we'll walk through, that we hope if this program continues to get funding over time, that we would be able to make it a little bit more automated. So for some of you that are maybe veterans to state financial assistance, what this is probably going to look like to some extent is some of the passport awarding early on when we were exchanging files, and then where last year with passport we moved to really more of it looking more like state need grant and college-bound scholarship, in terms of not really exchanging files, but for you all to be able to do your work just within the portal itself. So we will see if we get additional funding for this program moving forward, and if we do, I don't think we're saying that this is what the process will look like moving forward. What we would invite at that point is a few of you to work with us to make it a little bit less manual on your part and our part in terms of getting really this financial aid certification done. So I think with that introduction, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jaylee Schultz, who will walk us through a few more of an overview and some of the process.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. I'm Jaylee Schultz, as Becky introduced me, and I'm just going to go over a little bit more brief background about the Student Teaching Grant and briefly describe the process that we're setting up, and then Becky will do the demonstration. So here I'm showing we have, as Becky mentioned, we launched the Student Teaching application on February 1st, and we're taking in our applications right now. The final deadline is actually tomorrow at 5 p.m., so there's still time to get the word out if you know of any students who might qualify for these funds, that they can apply through tomorrow at 5 p.m. And we have the information posted on our readysetgrad.org/teachers website. We've posted basic details about the programs there and a link straight to the application. It's a brief 5-minute application that students can complete right online there. And as Becky mentioned, there is that second program, the Teacher Shortage Conditional Grant, which will be launching May 1st with a deadline of May 26th. So before I go into the background on the program, I first wanted to briefly describe the award process that we're set up for how to handle this one, just to kind of give you the background so you can keep this in mind. So what we would like to do is that WSAC will select the potential recipients. So once we close the application on Friday, we'll then be reviewing their application data and also checking their FAFSA and WASFA data to determine if the income eligibility is met. And in a moment here, I'll describe what those criteria are. But we'll identify the potential recipients, and then from there, we need to do a process to have you help us certify their eligibility. And so here we'll be sending a certification spreadsheet to each institution, and the spreadsheet will include the list of potential recipients from your institution. We're going to send that using the secure messaging function on the portal. So you will be notified in your institution email box, letting you know that you have a message waiting for you on the portal. You'll log in and retrieve your spreadsheet, and then we will need you to provide some information on the potential recipients with some of their financial aid details and certify their eligibility. Then you'll send that back to us through the secure messaging on the portal. And Becky will demonstrate that in just a little bit here. So once you've returned the spreadsheets to us, WSAC will use that information to determine the award amounts and disperse the funds to the financial aid offices. So that's just a quick overview of the process, and Becky will go into more detail when she demonstrates how those steps will work in the portal. But before we do the demonstration, I wanted to go over the eligibility for the grant. So just kind of backtracking here to let you know the eligibility requirements. So this grant is geared at students who are enrolled in teacher preparation programs that have been approved by the Professional Educator Standards Board. And as you're likely well aware, there's a lot of different types of teacher preparation programs. For the purpose of this grant, it can be any type of program, undergraduate, graduate, or certificate-only programs. They must be student teaching at a Title I eligible public school in Washington. I'm using the broadest definition of Title I here, that they're just eligible for Title I funds regardless of whether or not the school is actually receiving Title I funds. But they do have to be placed at a Title I eligible school, and our website and application have a link where we've published the list of eligible schools. Then the applicant must demonstrate financial needs, so they will have had to have completed the 2016-17 FAFSA or WSFA application. They have to have a family income at or below the amounts on the state need grant family income eligibility chart. So we're using the 70% criterion, that their family income is at or below 70% of MFI based on family size. And then they have to have unmet need after considering other state and federal grant aid. In addition, they cannot owe a repayment to any state or federal grant or scholarship, nor be in default on a state or federal student loan. So those are the minimum qualifications in order to be eligible for the grant. And then beyond those minimum qualifications, we'll consider these factors for awarding priorities when we score applications. So to help us select the recipients, the primary consideration will be their level of financial need. And then we have secondary considerations for the duration of their student teaching residency, with more points for a longer duration. And also some bonus points for if the applicant is pursuing an endorsement in a shortage area. So for the award amount, we have a maximum of up to $10,000 depending on the funds available and applicant financial needs. So as Becky mentioned, we're anticipating about 50 to 70 recipients, and so far have received just over 400 applications. Individual awards will vary based on unmet need, so this is why we're reaching out and asking for your help to help us determine the award amounts as they're customized to the individual's package. And this award can be used to replace a loan. So if the student had already taken out a loan, this award could then be used to help replace that. The amounts for the award, they do not need to be prorated for half or three-quarter time, and the funds can be applied to any term of the 2016-17 academic year. So just returning to talk about the process here again, so as we noted, WSAC is going to be responsible for selecting potential recipients, and then we have a certification step where we need your help. And so Becky is now going to demonstrate that and go into that process in a little bit more detail to show you how that'll work.
Thanks, Jaylee. Let me just get the right thing up on my screen for you all. So this should look familiar to you. This is, although you probably don't have the big red stamp of training, but this is the WSAC portal. So before you get to this step, once we send a spreadsheet to you, you will get, as you receive other messages from us, an email indicating that there's a message waiting for you that you need to log into the portal to retrieve it. So you're going to go into your messages and files. Oh, I got to log back in. Messages and files, and then your inbox. And what you'll see there is a message that probably has a subject line a lot like this one, which is your student teaching grant. And you just are going to want to open that up. And it's going to look like this. So kind of colorful. You might take your eyes a few minutes to sort of adjust to this. And so what you will receive from us is a spreadsheet with columns A through D complete. So we're going to identify the potential, and I think the word potential is really important here. You know, we are of who we think meets eligibility requirements, and then you're helping us determine whether or not they have enough need to actually receive that award amount. So what we need you to do is really to complete these other columns. So we would want you to fill in, and I'm just going to put in some examples here of cost of attendance, an EFC for a student, what they are receiving in total grant aid for the 16-17 academic year, if they have any scholarships, and whether or not they have any need-based loans, and their unsubsidized loans, private loans, if they have any, and work-study awards. We also are interested in whether or not you view their file as complete, and then you have the ability to make any notes here. What you'll notice here is that the spreadsheet is already calculating what we think that student's maximum award amount is. So that's in column O, and you'll see in this case we're calculating at this point an $8,000 award. If you feel like that for some reason that calculation doesn't seem right to you, you can always write us a note. But it really is looking at their grant and scholarship aid, you know, within their need to see how much more room they have. The other scenario that you may have is someone that doesn't have a file that is complete. You may be waiting for verification materials. And what we're asking is that you not hold up the spreadsheet, you know, for maybe an applicant here, that instead you just indicate that that file is not complete. If you had some notes, you could always put, you know, verification, something like that, expected completion. You know, you can write as much as you want in here by, you know, you could put some notes in here for us if you thought that that might be helpful. So you're going to complete these on your potential recipients, and then you're going to want to save this file somewhere. And once that is done, what you need to do is get it back to us. So you simply are going to be doing that back through the secure portal or secure files on the portal. So I'm going to go back to that space where, again, you want to go to your inbox, and you're going to be clicking on this Create a New Secure Message to WSAC. Under the To, you're going to indicate that this is for the student teaching grant. Put a subject line here, By the way, these instructions really are in that manual. And then you're going to find that file again. And you're going to attach it and then hit send to get it sent off to us. So in terms of just recapping, you know, you would have gone in to retrieve from your message from the portal your spreadsheet. You're going to complete that spreadsheet. You would then send it back to us. Oh, I see that there's some questions in chat. So I'm going to start to go back to those and see if I can't get caught up here. So let's see. So the first one I see is where would a TEACH grant be listed? As a grant or as an unsub loan? Wow, you already started with a tough one for me. I think in some ways TEACH grants, they have to be a need-based financial, are they considered a need-based financial assistance program? Or is that kind of the question because they have a little bit of loan, they're kind of a little bit of both. I don't know, Oscar, if you can unmute if that's possible, or I don't know if you're typing here. Tracy, it looks like you have the same question. Did we mute them all? No. Okay. So I think.
Becky, can you hear me? This is Tracy.
Yes. Hi, Tracy.
Yeah, I posted, no, a TEACH grant, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody else, but the federal TEACH grant can replace EFC.
So it doesn't have to be within need.
That's
That's
true.
what I hear you saying. So yes. I would call it an unsubsidized loan, but I think maybe what we need to do is do a little bit of research here and double check, and we can address that in a revised manual. I think that in some ways, I see that you're sort of also, Tracy, asking this question about how do we define the difference between a grant and scholarship. I think that, did we put something on the spreadsheet in terms of how we define that? I think in general the important thing is, I'm not sure that it's probably how you would define it, but the key is that those are both categories of aid that we would not want to replace. You know, there's that they are kind of givens. Those are that's aid that, you know, is not really, that has to be on their package and is you know, kind of free money to them. So I feel a little bit like that makes it even more the case that a TEACH grant may need to be in the unsubsidized loan category. But like I said, we will do a little bit of research on that one. I'm just working my way down the list. It looks like there's a message about, can portal messages be set up to send email notifications? So just to maybe clarify, so when we send a spreadsheet, when we go into the portal, we meaning WSAC, when we are sending a spreadsheet that indicates that you, we are asking that you certify eligibility, it does send you an email notification that is telling you that you have an email or that you have a secure message in the secure message section of the portal. So again, if I'm misunderstanding these questions, just let me know and we can come back to them. So great question about if grant and scholarship amounts are the only items needed to calculate the award, why are we asking for other data elements? And this is a question we actually asked ourselves as well here, and I think in some ways for our first round, you know, for this being a brand new program, we are a little bit interested in knowing different pieces of information about these applicants to be able to report back to the legislature on them. So it isn't something we need to really determine their award amount, but we thought that we want to know if we can without, I know we're asking you to enter more details, but we are trying to get a sense of who these folks might be, what they look like, you know, how much borrowing are they doing, because we think that that could be interesting to others that may be deciding whether or not they want to continue to fund this program. And that, you know, I think that that's where we're looking, to you all of after we do this first round, and again, if we get additional funding for future academic years, whether or not we really need to, you know, everything is up to revisit whether or not that was difficult to calculate, and whether that would be helpful if we took that data element off. So there's another question about once we, will we receive notification before you actually get the dollars for that student? That's a good question. I think what we were thinking is that we would, at the time of that we were sending you those dollars, at the time that we were dispersing it, that we would at that point notify you of those final, you know, who was actually awarded and what their award amounts are, so kind of that backup documentation. But, and I think the idea was that we want, because it's getting later in the academic year, that we wanted to do things as quickly as we could in terms of these dollars to these applicants. Again, if we were to do this again, you know, next year, I think we would have much different timing when it comes to the applications for these students, or, you know, of when the application cycle would be open and when dollars would be dispersed. But because we're in an unusual situation this year where it's kind of later in the academic year, not wanting to hold that up. But I'm really interested in whether or not that would work for you. Would you rather have a period of time in which you know for sure who we are awarding and how much before you actually get those dollars? And so, you know, you can chime in here if you want through chat, or you could send me or Jay Lee a message, or you can always call one of us if you have some thoughts on that. I would ask that you do that in the next couple days, and we'll see what we can do. So the next question is, what happens if the student's eligibility, like EFC, changes after the award amount is determined? And it would be the same as, you know, what happens on your campus with scholarship dollars when there's sort of a change or a grant amount. That you would want to go through the same process. I think that though we thought about there is this unique period of time, though, possibly when you might have just certified and sent the spreadsheet back, you don't have the dollars yet, and that you might know, you know, that something is going to change. In that case, to the extent possible, it would be great for you to let us know if that change has happened in that really unique and maybe probably short period of time. But if you actually have those dollars, then it would be a situation just like any other award change that you would go through your standard process of determining whether or not they're still eligible for those dollars, or if a full or partial kind of refund would need to come back. So next question, man, you guys have some fantastic questions, thank you. So the next one I see here is, do recipients who attend private colleges need to complete a student directive form? So for this cycle, we did look at that in our office, and we're saying no, they do not need to do that. For this cycle, it's something that we may look a little bit closer at if we would to get additional funding next year. But for right now, for the 16-17 academic year, you do not need to get a student directive. Okay, I got one person weighing in. Thank you, Michael, for indicating that you would like to have the information before the EFT. And a few other folks. Okay, so do we need to check this? Oh, okay, here's the next one. So if the awards are made ahead of the academic year, do we need to check to make sure that the students are actually enrolled in student teaching? So for this round, for really the 16-17, these applicants have all self-certified that they are student teaching during a specific period of time. So it is not your responsibility as a financial aid administrator to verify that. So we are doing that verification in our office, and just so you know, we're doing it primarily on self-reporting. So that is not something you need to check. I think that, part of your question, though, to me is ahead of the academic year. So we may need to think about that if we were to run the cycle ahead of the academic year, but that is not the case that we will be in with these applicants this year. They all need to be currently enrolled in 16-17, and they need to be student teaching. I believe I'm going to look to Jaylee, but I think we said January through any time during February 1st through June 30th. So I'm just going to repeat that. They've self-certified that they are student teaching at any point during the period of time of February 1st through June 30th. And so at this point, that is what we're doing as a confirmation. Even if we were to move forward with this and there would be different timing, WSAC would take on that responsibility. So that's not going to be one of your responsibilities. Lots of people saying that they want the award information before the EFT. It looks like I missed one. I think that for those of you that said, so I'm hearing loud and clear you want the notification before EFT. Now, it feels like a poll question. The poll question of the day now is, how far in advance? 3 days, 5 days. I don't know if we can get kind of a range of times of how soon you would like that in advance. And sorry, I did miss our return of Title IV question. So, right, this would be, in this case, I'm trying to remember what we said in the manual. I don't know that we addressed it, and we may need to. So it is in a situation like other state aid that you would need to determine at what, like how many dollars did they earn, or how long they were in their program. I think that when we thought about putting it in the manual, we decided that there will likely be maybe a couple, but we also think that this specific group of students are pretty far along in their program in that they have to be student teaching. And so maybe what we'll do here is just indicate, maybe make an update to the manual, that if you have a situation with somebody withdraws, that you contact our office and we work through that until we can get, and then provide some additional guidance. Yeah, there is a repayment section. I'm sorry, you guys. I need to remind myself what we wrote there. But I would say that in this early on in the program, that you can just call us. Okay, here's what we said. If a student teaching grant recipient leaves school during an academic year in which he or she receives a grant, the student is required to repay student teaching grant funds according to the Washington Student Achievement Council's repayment policy as defined for state need grant program. So, so those same rules would apply. What you don't have, though, at this moment with this program is the ability to really record those repayments like you do with state need grant. So on page 5 of the manual does indicate that of how to report those. It's really through email to our office. So we hope that there's really not any or very few, but that it will likely happen. And we're happy to help walk through any of those that may come up. So I hear this about modifying the state need grant calculator. Good point, and we will take a look at that. Did I get through all the questions so far? Are any of you typing away trying to ask something else? Just going to kind of go back through them. Okay, I don't see any. I'm scrolling you all. Thank you for your patience. So I hear vote for 3 days before EFT. I think we can definitely do that. Jaylee, did you want to wrap us up? Or I can wrap us up. Okay, moving back to the PowerPoint here. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about the timing, or did you want here? And we're almost done, all. So as a reminder, we're closing this application tomorrow at 5 p.m. to applicants. We definitely have way more demand than we have awards. So we will be significantly reducing that. So my guess is statewide, the most you would probably see is maybe about 80, applicants again statewide. I'm not sure how they will look in terms of, school to school, whether, every school, if every one of you will end up having a recipient. It's hard to tell this time around, but we will be working on that next week. So we will be doing our work, looking at FAFSA and WASPA data in terms of income criteria and the other pieces that Jaylee mentioned. And then we anticipate that we would send you all certification spreadsheets the week of March 13th, and that we're hoping that it's possible that you would return those within 2 weeks, and that we would begin dispersing in early April for these folks. Definitely appreciate the feedback, and we'll make sure that you get notified ahead of time, so at least 3 days beforehand, in terms of who we are awarding. And then we may have follow-up certifications as needed. Again, going through this the first time around, it's possible that we would have some additional folks that we would need to have certified. So in other words, if we were being conservative this time around and just assuming as we sent those first spreadsheets out that all of them would be receiving $10,000, but really the average award ended up being more like $7,000, then we would likely have to do a second round of certifications. So we will need to do that, and that's going to be a possibility. And then finally, we talked about some of this. The one thing that we didn't cover is really that reporting, in that we will be providing some additional details in the 1617 unit record manual, but that these awards need to be put in the category or the bucket as other state-funded gift assistance. So they will not be their own category. It's going to be that they need to be identified and placed in that other state-funded gift assistance bucket. And then that's really, at this point, what we have covered. It looks like maybe a couple other things came in by chat that I'll take a quick look at. So yeah, there's a question really that has to do with how this was promoted. And I'm going to have Jaylee talk maybe a little bit more specifically in a second. But I think that it was promoted in a wide variety of channels, and absolutely the education schools were notified in advance of the application being opened, as well as 1 or 2 reminders throughout the application cycle. We also worked with OSPI to ensure that that school districts were notified about this. You know, we had some other publicity. I think that we know to some extent, we'll know more as we kind of figure out who we have in our applicant pool, but by just the size of our applicant pool, although we don't really exactly know who, you know, what the overall need really is, we feel that in some ways that a lot of the promotion did work to have that many applicants in a short period of time. But we're always interested in other ways that we can promote it. Again, if we are to continue to have funding in this program, we would want to understand that. The other thing I would just mention is that, you know, I talked a little bit about a small financial aid administrators work group, or a few of you that were on that helped us with the spreadsheet and some initial thoughts on the spreadsheet. Before that, we, over the course of 3 months, worked with 30 different stakeholders in a work group. So they met 3 times over 3 months. Really intense conversations, a little bit about this program, more about the other program that we'll be rolling out in May to really create that framework. But they were a critical number of members that also helped us identify ways in which we could promote this program, and they were well informed once that application cycle was opened as well. Jaylee, any other thoughts?
And also the work group contributed to deciding the award amount.
What's that?
The award amount.
Oh yeah, the work group, we did work with them about, you know, what was an appropriate award amount. Or maximum, I should say, and so we did work with them on that. In addition to having kind of that stakeholder group that included prep program administrators, school district administrators, you know, community members, other folks, we also, Jaylee led some focus groups that included potential recipients. So these, I mean, I guess you could call them students, and they ranged from high school students to alternative routes participants to, you know, traditional baccalaureate degree or teacher preparation programs. So really trying to get a wide variety of the types of students that could be applying for this program. So sorry, you guys, I'm kind of catching up on my reading here. Oh, so I think that this is a really good question about why aren't we lowering the award amounts to reach more students. And I think that that is something that we will be considering, again, if this gets funded for another year and now having a better sense of the demand. I think a couple things played into why the grant amounts really are the 10 grand at the moment, the maximum of grant amounts. And I think we are leaving ourselves a little bit open to possibly reducing it if we wanted to spread out a few more awards. So we have not, it's possible. But the feedback that we got from potential applicants and then also with our broad work group, stakeholder work group, was that this had to be really a substantial amount, a substantial award. And the point, I think, or the legislative intent of this award is that student teaching tends to be a period of time in which it's it could be very, very financially difficult for folks that may have to quit a job or sort of no longer have maybe an income stream that they might have had because they need to be in a classroom, and that really is their job. And so we also, to some extent, wanted it to, I think we kind of were using the word like substantial, or came up, and I think we will learn a lot through this cycle, and I do think that we did not know how many applicants we would get, and we also were very conscientious of going into the cycle that we have to spend every dollar. And so that's why we chose that amount at the moment, but I think that it is something that we want to review if we were to get additional dollars. I see another question about having a copy of the PowerPoint. Absolutely, for sure. Happy to share that. We will forward that out, as well as a link once we are able to post the recording, or for you all, if you wanted to share it with other colleagues. So the one question I see here is, do we ask for unmet need on the spreadsheet? We don't ask for it directly, but that's really what we're calculating when we're asking for those other components of cost of attendance and EFC and the grant aid and the scholarship. I think that we don't ask for unmet need directly because this really can replace need-based loans, possibly for some students. So just thinking that it was a little bit cleaner to only ask about grant and or to sort of split out those buckets of what might be the components of that financial aid package. So then there's a question about how we handle subsidized loans. So we are asking for loans in here, and we ask them in the spreadsheet. We're asking about need-based loans, and we're asking about unsubsidized and private loans. But our assumption is that this award can, cover, or that it may replace loans, including need-based loans. Again, you guys' questions are just really fantastic. WSAC recipients, or those applicants that have filed a FAFSA or WSAC, do not need to have DACA status. Am I caught up on all the questions? Hopefully I didn't miss anything so far. Okay, in terms of next steps here, thanks so much for everyone's time. Really appreciate it. I also want to thank you in advance for the work that you're going to have to do to certify eligibility for these recipients. Please let just Jaylee and I welcome feedback as we go along. If we are to get additional dollars, know that we are going to want those of you that are willing to really think critically with us about how to improve this moving forward. I think I did get another question about when you're going to expect that first list, and it's really, let's see if I can find it here. It's so the week of March 13th is when you can expect the spreadsheets. Or your institution really should be only getting one spreadsheet. Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. Really very much appreciate your time, and we'll be back in touch with email with once the link of the manual goes on to the website. We'll provide additional follow-up about this recording and just as well as the PowerPoint slides. Thanks, everyone.